Hi everybody and welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Flynn. I'm here with the fantastic Sophie Elinor, and we would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we are streaming from today and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Sophie, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Flynn. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thanks. I'm really good. Hello to everybody in chat. Hi Johanna, great to have you back. Johanna's back from a trip up to Brisbane for the design conference. So it's lovely to have you back here looking after us today. Mode of the Void is in here as well. If you're watching this stream anywhere else, like over on YouTube or something like that, jump on over to behance.net/live. If you want to say hi, we'd love to hear from you. And we are continuing on from our animated GIF series. So was it 2 weeks ago now? We started off with a live brief, and I mentioned it at the beginning of each one that Sophie's being very brave by tackling a live brief live, which isn't an easy thing to do. So the beginning of the brief, like from the written brief that we have, we won't go through that today because it takes a little bit of time, but you can check that out in some of the previous streams. But we'll kind of pick up where we left off, more or less. But if you did miss that and you want to know, quick little update, basically creating 4 separate animated GIFs for Adobe Live. So some of our emails that go out primarily that kind of capture some of the categories that we do, like photography, illustration, and so on. But yeah, so Sophie, where do you want to begin? Do you want to begin with your smorgasbord of
Yeah.
inspiration?
That's what it is. It's not a mood board, it's a smorgasbord. That's a way better name for what it is. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to use that moving forward. That's perfect.
That's what I do.
So yeah, I just started by dumping all of our reference material into Illustrator, and then just kind of playing with a few different color palettes and typeface options. As you just said, these were the 4 different words that we're going to be animating to create our little title GIFs for the Adobe Live emails. We pretty much finished photography in our sessions the other week. It looked a little bit something like this. We had that kind of pulling focus, flash effect going on with photography. We're trying to relate each of the titles back to their actual themes. So that's where we landed with photography. And then we kind of just started on motion when we were finishing up. So this is where we got up to with that. We had our little, let me just zoom in a bit here. So we had our little ripple effect kind of looping the O a bit, technical term there. We had our pin tool, our puppet tool, making our eye do a little dance. And then we used the 3D feature to spin our N around at the end there.
Emotion's really fun because it can be quite on the nose, can't it? Because
using
motion tools to
it is
show
what it
motion.
is.
So yeah,
exactly. And I think if I just jump back into Illustrator, so it was kind of a bit of a group sort of discussion that led to adding these sort of twinkles and what do we call them? Ray bursts? I don't know. These little lines. Yeah. And so I thought that's a really nice thing to carry through the different designs as we go. So with motion, I thought it would be nice to add some in to emphasize the movements that we're going to be playing with. So we haven't got up to that yet, but hopefully if we can smash through this today, we might be able to get up to our
That's cool. So they were kind of like in Illustrator, you had like a bit of a static kind of idea of what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Are you bringing all of that in, or is that more for yourself just to kind of have a look at it from a static version and you build it?
Yeah.
In
No. I mean, I could build it in After Effects because they're not particularly complex drawings. They're just tiny little lines. So it would be quick enough to do. But I mean, I had drawn them anyway in Illustrator, so I just split them across into different layers here.
Yep.
Which we brought into Illustrator up the top here, but After Effects. But I've just switched them off for the moment because I'm just trying to focus one thing at a time.
Okay.
On the letterforms. Yeah, it's easy to be like, I'm going to do everything all at once. And then you're like, hang on, no, take a step back.
Yeah, you need like a methodical kind of approach to this kind of thing.
Yeah. That being said, though, we just picked a bunch of letters at random last time we were doing this. So we got to fill in some gaps here. I was focusing on these letters using pretty simple techniques in After Effects. You don't need a lot of, you don't need any special plugins or anything like that. No scripts involved. We're just using the built-in transform properties and a couple of the preset effects.
Yeah.
So we've got our O, our I, and our N, and I'm pretty happy with how they're looking at the moment. We can come back and fine tune those later once we've sort of fleshed it out a bit more. But I thought, let's just start with our letter M. We'll start at the start. Seems like as logical a place to begin as any.
Starting at the beginning is always good.
Johanna
has a question in chat. Do you usually prefer to draw everything in Illustrator or After Effects?
As a general rule, I like Illustrator more just because it's kind of built to be used as a drawing tool a bit more easily than After Effects. You can do most of the same things in After Effects, but I just find it faster and easier to do it in Illustrator because I can just move things around really quickly and you've got like other features that you don't necessarily have, like your Pathfinder tool and that kind of thing.
Right. Cool.
So I think to fill out what we've got here, I think what I would like to happen, and tell me what you think about this, Flynn, because this is ultimately for you.
Right.
I think what I would like to have is for the M to maybe just animate the scale. So similar to how we did the stars in photography, we just want it to sort of bounce in this direction a little bit. I thought the T, maybe we could play around with the rotation. So maybe it could just kind of do a bit of a this.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then this O, we might make him do a little jump. So maybe he'll sort of crouch down a little and then do a little jump.
Yeah.
And then come back down and we'll add a bit of bounce to that.
Cool.
So
yeah, that all sounds good.
All right, let's dive in.
Interested to see how the T goes.
Yeah, look, the T might be a first draft. We'll reassess. So I'm just going to drop a couple keyframes on the scale property. Well, that's maybe too big. Maybe let's go to 115.
And just as Johanna mentioned in chat, always feel free to throw questions in as we're going along. Maybe you're a designer and you haven't used After Effects a lot, and you might have some questions or anything like that. Feel free to ask away.
Absolutely. So I'm just manually doing this. And I'm pretty much just swinging between. So we're starting at 100%. We're going back because we want to create that anticipation before our primary movement, which is the leaping forward. Mm-hmm. So we're reducing a little, and then we're going to bounce up to 115%. And then it's just that kind of settling back into the starting position, which at the moment is happening way too fast, but we've got our keyframes so we can adjust from there.
That anticipation thing, that's kind of like part of the kind of animation fundamentals, right? There's like a whole kind of list of things.
Yeah. It definitely feels like animation 101 kind of thing. And you certainly notice it when it's not there. Maybe it's not something that you would initially articulate as missing, but if it's missing, you're like, oh, something's not right there.
Right.
All right, so we've got our little bounce going on there, and then our O does its ripple, and then let's have a look at this T. Let's see if this rotation thing works. So we'll drop a keyframe where it currently is. And the thing that I'm wondering is, do we want it to rotate from the center, or do we want it to rotate from the top, or maybe the bottom? So we can have we'll have a little quick experiment with this and just kind of see what that looks like. So if we're going from the center, and you can see the center point is just there, that's where it's going to pivot from.
Right.
Well, it's not bad from the center. I don't hate it. Let's try something else though. If we move our center point down, actually no, let's move it in this direction because I think it might be more interesting. If we had our center point at the bottom, then our top is going to be the bit that's moving the most. And because the crossbar of the T is already taking up quite a lot of space, it's going to be crashing into the letters beside it. Whereas if we put that center point at the top, that will stay mostly stationary, and it'll be our the bottom of the T which will move more. Yeah. Which might also help fill up some of this sort of negative space.
Negative space down there. Bottom. That's cool. It might help a little bit with the reader like legibility as well, with the cross.
Yeah.
Not dancing too much.
Definitely. So let's see what that looks like instead.
I just shared a list as well, because we've mentioned kind of principles of animation a couple of times in this and also on Adobe Live. So just had a quick look for something that explains them. So there's like a 12 principles of animation link that I just dropped in chat if you want to check it out and see what we're talking about a little bit more, or have a little bit of an more in-depth look at what they are.
Nice one.
You'll recognize some things.
So we're only moving this 8 degrees, but we're getting quite a lot of movement just with those 8 degrees. But we'll let it settle back down again. So we'll have that bounce as well. So maybe let's go 5.
My eye always goes to that eye. I just love the little wiggly.
It's so
having
good.
The best time.
Can't get enough of the puppet tool, honestly. So much fun. So I don't mind that. It's got kind of like almost like a metronome. Is that the word I'm thinking of? The thing that keeps time when you play instruments?
Yeah, metronome, yep.
A little metronome.
It's like an upside down metronome.
Yeah. I also kind of like how that effect is leading on between the letters. So it's almost like you can kind of see that the T is kicking into that little negative space there that the O creates, and then when it swings this way, it's sort of
hitting the.
It feels like it's like a, it's interacting with the letters on either side of it.
Yeah, it has like a force kind of thing around it.
Yeah,
it's cool.
What's the what's that thing called with like the little balls on the string, and you pull one and let it go, and then the.
I know what you mean. It's like on
the name of that thing?
Like on every desk in like for every executive in the 90s in every movie. There's like one of those things. I always found them so strange. That would drive me insane. Like, I feel like someone would come into the office and sit down and they would just go, like, dude, stop it. Like, this is
You're like,
just
great.
annoying.
Well, I need to clear my 3 o'clock now because this is going to be going for an hour. All right. I reckon our little T metronome is kind of working pretty well.
And is it slowing down? Is it going from further and then kind of settling? Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
Or is that just my eye? Yeah, it is. Okay.
Yeah, no, no, you have great eye. We're starting with our points closer together, and also our distances are further apart too. So it's going further in less time. And then as our measurements get closer and closer, I'm dragging them out a bit to exaggerate that.
Cool. I like it. Gareth's helped us out in chat. It's called Newton's Cradle.
That's the one. That's the one. I would never have got that. It wasn't even close to the tip of my tongue.
Me either.
All right, so now let's have a little play with our letter O here, because this is the little guy that I want to have jumping. Cool. So the first thing I need to do before I touch anything is move that center point, because I want to treat this letter O as if there's a ground, as if it's currently sitting on the ground. And if I play with the scale, where am I? If I play with the scale property at the moment, it's going from the center, and that's not the illusion that I'm trying to create. I want it to be scaling from down here, because now when I scale, we've got that sort of point of reference that even without drawing a ground in there, our mind is kind of filling in the gaps and being like, oh yeah, that letter O is sitting on the ground.
Right. Cool. Hey, there was a question from chat, from Mo.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be pleasant to add a tad of blur to the motion? That's kind of interesting. So like, would you ever add blur to this kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what we did with our photography one. That was all about the blur, totally. Yeah. But I'm assuming mote means to the movements that we've got here, just to kind of I think add to that effect.
That's what I read too.
Yeah. I mean, we can tick that on just here. So that's a really shortcut way to do that, and that enables this little, I don't know if you can see that tiny little button there. It enables motion blur for all layers with that switched on. So that's one way you can do that. Otherwise, you can go and do what we did with the photography one, where you are kind of manually adding an effect to it.
What does that look like? Could we press that button and see what happens?
Yeah. So let's where are we? So we've got that switched on here, but it's not currently applied to any of our layers.
Right.
But maybe the letter N, because it's got like a quite dramatic movement. So let's have a look at that. If we, oh wait, no, we can't. Why can't we? No, we can. We definitely can. Where is it? Here. So if we switch that on there, oh, actually, let's have a look at it without it first of all.
So we're looking at the N here, the swivelly N. Yep.
There's going to be a little bit of a lag here because we've got a bit of rendering happening.
Yeah.
So, I mean, your eye, because it moves quickly, there's kind of a bit of that going on already. Oh, wait, no, hang on. I switched that on. Let's try again. This is without. And then with it switched on. So it's pretty subtle.
It's pretty subtle, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty subtle. You would probably, I don't know, maybe we need a bigger, more dramatic movement for that to really kind of shine through a bit. But the other thing that I kind of have in the back of my mind is we have a file size limit with these final animations. And adding things like blur, even though we did it in the photography one, is exactly the kind of thing that's going to really beef up the final file size.
Right.
So we can definitely do it, but there are certain limitations that we're working within in this particular instance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Like adding things like blur, we covered that quite a bit. Just like the file size restriction. So yeah, there's a pretty tight. I think it's two megabytes, if I remember.
I thought it was 1.
Oh,
if it's
1
2,
megabyte?
We're sweet, but I thought it was 1. Yeah.
I'll check my brief.
We need to check the brief.
No, you're right. It is 1. It is 1. It's what we call scope creep. No, so yeah, it is 1.
So that's going like in a good really, direction for me.
That's like a really important part of this. As Sophie said, this particular brief. So yeah, if you're adding something like, that's why there's like quite a limited, trying to keep the color palette quite limited. Yeah. The length kind of limited as well, all that sort of stuff. So I think that's a really good point, and thanks for the question, because it helps us kind of talk a little bit more about like the limitations of a brief that you might have. Obviously you want the GIF to look like as good as possible. Like this is it's for a client, right? It's for Adobe. If it's pixelated or not very smooth, or we end up having to do it's a 10 frame 5 frames or something animation, then you would imagine that someone would open it up and just be like, oh, like that, what's going on? I thought these people knew what they were talking about. But if it's something for you, like, that you want to upload to Giphy that's a fun gag between you and your group of friends, then that's a different kind of story and you can go nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, that's something that I'm kind of trying to keep in the back of my mind, is like, okay, we can have fun, but we can't go too crazy with it, because we're just going to create future problems for ourselves if we do a bit too much, if we get a bit too fancy with it.
Yeah.
So let's focus on our little second O here. So the things that I'm going to play with here are the position of it and the scale of it. Before I drop any keyframes, I actually want to separate the dimensions. I want to separate my X and Y dimensions so that I can play with those individually. And I also want to unlink the scale property, because again, I'm going to be adjusting those as like treating them as separate properties. So now that I've done that, let me just check which direction. No, we want our Y axis, always forgetting which is X and which is Y.
Always get them mixed up.
Oh boy. And the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to bring our little O down. I reckon that's probably far enough. So I've only moved it in the horizontal direction. The vertical direction. But actually probably the link that you just shared, Flynn, might cover this squash and stretch property.
Right, yeah. It's
as well, which is just kind of the general idea that an object should retain roughly the same mass at all times. So because I have shrunk this little guy, he should also have moved in this direction as well to kind of have roughly the same surface area. Which is why I separated my dimensions, because otherwise it would have scaled that proportionally, and that's not exactly what I want to do. So at the moment we've got we're kind of shrinking this direction, growing this direction in anticipation for our little jump that he's going to do. So when he does his little jump, he's going to stretch in the other direction. So in this instance, he's going to go let's maybe do 115. And because he's got taller, he should also get skinnier. This is like maybe the only instance I can think of where it's okay to distort type in this way. Normally I would not recommend doing this at all, but it's going to happen so quickly that we kind of need it in order to sell the movement. So yeah, don't do this for a static piece of type. But if we're moving and we're going to return to our original position, then that's all right.
Cool. So you can bend the rules a little bit.
Yes, but only a little bit.
Stretch the rules in this case. Yeah, only a little bit.
Stretch and squash the rules, yes. Okay, so we've gone from creeping down, jumping up, and then maybe let's go a little taller. Let's exaggerate this a little bit more. That looks good to me. And then again, as we've done with like pretty much every other letter here so far, we want that kind of settling effect. So we're gonna kind of repeat what we did in the opposite direction. But we're making our increments smaller as we go.
Right.
So this point here is not as exaggerated as that point there. And actually what we can do to maybe save some time here is I'll just copy that point and then bring it down so that I know that what I'm doing is moving in the correct direction. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So 100% regular size, getting smaller, getting bigger, getting slightly smaller, getting slightly bigger, and then we can probably return to 100 on both of these values here. If it's not enough, we can add some more keyframes in, but let's just see what that looks like. Now, at the moment, it looks weird because I haven't actually animated the position of it at all. So it's just kind of doing a little bob on the spot.
Yeah.
Not quite the effect we're going for, but we're halfway there. There's something very claymation-y about that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm picturing like Gumby or something, you know.
Looks like someone's trying to jump, but someone's nailed their shoes to the ground.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's have a look at the Y position. So we don't actually want that to change until we get to here. So I'm going to move our starting keyframe to this point. And then when we reach that kind of maximum stretched out position, that's when we want a bit of lift off.
Where people need me.
I have to go now.
I have to go now.
And then we're just going to be coming back to this imaginary ground position. This is, again, something that will sell that because, again, we can't see something, but we know that when the O hits this particular point, that's when it's going to do that squash and stretch thing again. And then just bring that down a little bit more. And then return to our starting position. So now we've got a bit more of a believable movement, although without any ease added to it, it looks a little bit rough. And I think we can probably give this guy some more space here.
Chatting about the rules you can break and everything. Moat saying don't break all the rules at the same time.
That's a good rule to follow. Sometimes.
Yep. On that, yep. Johanna said breaking some of the rules some of the time. And then Johanna has a question for chat as well. So you guys, and also Sophie, what is your favorite design rule to break?
Oh.
I'll go first. Grids. I like breaking.
That's
grids.
a great one.
It's an easy one though, because you're kind of.
But only sometimes, right? Because otherwise,
sometimes.
if you're breaking every grid all of the time, why even have the grid?
Right. Or you just do your design and then you add the grid after, so you can show your client. Yeah, this is.
Look, they're not even perpendicular, but look, there's straight lines there somewhere.
Grid, yeah. Just put some fake lines in over the top. I
feel like I don't know. Do we need another bounce in here? Are we finishing this too quickly? I feel like it settles a bit too quickly. So we're going down, up, back down, up. Do you know what? I think I want to add one more. It's not quite right. I want to add one more little guy in here.
Is everyone else like adding their own sound effects to the animations when they go through? Like it's such a boing.
Woo!
Sound. Boing.
Oh, you went boing. I went woo.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Interesting.
To each their own. I like your direction though. Woo.
So what did I want to do here? I want to, this guy's going to come back down, and then I just want to, a little tiny, teeny tiny, almost not even there, just so we've got a little bit coming back up. That's better. I don't know if you can even notice that difference, but that seems way better to me, just having that final coming back up.
Yeah. Yeah. I see it. I've seen
nice.
It. It's cool.
Sweet. Okay. So the thing that I think we should maybe tackle now is all of our individual letters are kind of animating pretty well, but it's a bit of a ruckus in that there's not really there's no arc to this. They're all just kind of like pinging off whenever they feel.
Right.
And I think maybe we should treat this in a similar way to the photography one we did, where perhaps the M fires off first, and then it kind of starts a bit of a Newton's cradle, if you will.
Cradle. Well done.
Kick of motion. So let's just quickly rearrange some of our little keyframes here. So M's going to go first. Let's bring those forward a little. And we maybe don't want the O to start until the M gets to this larger position there. The T is kind of going at the right time already. Yeah, that's quite good. But our I is getting its wiggle on far too early. So maybe we can, maybe the T can kind of move to the left to begin with, and then when it moves to the right, that might be the thing that kind of kicks off the next little movement. So we'll just drag these guys down here. Oh yeah, look at that. Now it's like giving it a kick up the backside, and the eye's like, fine, I'll dance. Oh, stop complaining
reluctant
at me.
person at the club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll get,
it's actually really appropriate because then they're just kind of like just doing a little jiggle on the spot without moving their feet. Just like, all right, okay,
it's
but
the
I'm living
equivalent
here.
of the foot. Yeah, it's the foot tapping. It's like, it's technically a dance.
Yeah.
But just know that I'm putting no effort into this at all.
Way too cool.
And then we kind of get a couple of show-offs at the end here.
Yeah.
We kind of have we might have our O jump up, and he's like, hey guys, check this out. And then the N is like, that's nothing. Look what I can do.
Check out the twirl.
Yeah. Actually, we might move that even further because we want the N to be the final kind of keyframe here that moves. So now now this makes a bit more sense, I think. It's a little bit less chaotic. Just like give that a little second to render. Well, it's kind of fun watching it in slow motion, actually.
Yeah. It's like an R&B song, and now we're hip hop.
We're just genre hopping all over the place today. So that feels pretty
Cool.
cute to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like there's a bit of a story. They're each having their little moment in the spotlight. There's a real variety in the movement that's happening there as well. So we've probably got too much time left over at the end here. Let's bring that in a bit. We can maybe even bring it in on this side too.
So that's part of it, right? Like the longer amount of obviously the longer amount of time, the much bigger the file size is going to be in the end.
Yeah, I think we probably don't want to be much more than 3 seconds, although we're kind of sitting at about 4 at the moment. But we don't, if we've got a 10-second GIF, it's going to be enormous.
And you can get away with it quite a bit, because one of the things that is in the brief is like being legible for an amount of time. But this one's like really legible almost the whole time as well. And because of the cascading thing, you could probably get away with having less time frozen on the static than you would in potentially some of the other animations.
Yep. Beautiful.
It's looking cool.
Now let's play around with our little motion lines. This is we're basically just gonna chuck a bunch of trim paths on all of these. So that's how we're gonna tackle this. Trim paths right up there with the puppet tool as one of my favorite things to do in Illustrator. And we just do that by twirling down into the layer and then adding a trim path. I'm just going to really quickly do that for all of our little layers here because it's going to make it faster. This is probably the most time consuming part of this process, just going and adding those in. But once we've got them, then we can copy and paste our keyframes from one to the other. So it won't take too long once we've actually assigned a little trim path. We've just got to divvy it out to everyone first.
Equal handout. I like that. So while you're doing that, just checking in with you guys, chat. We've got about 20 minutes left today. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in. Festus is saying it's looking excellent. Couldn't agree more. Makes me feel like dancing. And when we started talking about K-pop, I started talking about K-pop, and Johanna said, "I'd love to see what Sophie will get up to animating work for a K-pop music video."
Oh my God, I would love that. Can this be my public call out for that? Like, I am open for animating for K-pop bands. Please and thank you. All right. We've all got our little trim paths assigned rather. So then they're pretty teeny tiny. So it's not going to take much for us to get this going. So I'm just animating the start and finish of each of those trim paths. And I think if I move the end keyframes outside here, what will happen is it will animate on. It's pretty tiny and it's going to be even crunchier if I zoom in anymore, but it's going to animate on. Between these two keyframes, nothing will happen, and then it will animate off.
Right.
But I think what I want to happen is for the start to kind of chase the end so that we're not getting the full picture at once.
Right.
I think that will sell the movement a little better. Well, that is very slow. Okay, so we need to tighten that. Maybe even faster. We don't need to spend, like these are really just to kind of help exaggerate the effect of the letters themselves. So we're not, it's more of a spotlight rather than a feature, this one. these little bits. And then just adding a bit of ease. Just we'll exaggerate that S-curve in the graph editor a little bit.
It's a really little change that you did there. Is that because it's really short anyway?
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a lot of time between the start and finish here. But I feel like that speed that we've got is pretty good for something that's so short. Maybe a tiny bit longer. Yeah. Cool. I think that is pretty good for that. So now for our letter M, we have, I think, 6 little starburst guys. So I'm going to open up our little trim paths panels here. And then whoops. Oh gosh, no, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go.
So you've just grabbed you just did the trim path for the first one, but you have 6 of these, so you could just copy those keyframes and just paste them on the other 5 layers.
Do you know what? I thought I could do that. And it's pasting a new trim path, which is not what I want.
Right.
But that's fine. We can do it one at a time. That's a-okay. We're still getting through it. So at the moment, these are all firing off at the same time, which is not exactly what I want. And they're also firing too early. I think I want them to kind of go off as soon as the M is at its largest size.
Yeah.
That
so
makes sense.
It gets to the large
me.
bit and then they fly off and then the animation starts.
And then it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we might just grab all of these keyframes and just bring them down a little. And then I'm going to just offset these, maybe just 1 frame. Doesn't need to be a lot. And we might let the bottom 3 start a bit earlier too. So now and actually we might need to bump all of these back just a couple keyframes so we're hitting it. There's a bit of a lag between the 0 and getting to 100.
Right.
That seems pretty close.
Well, that's looking pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's moving in that direction that we're kind of moving the M in, so it's exaggerating that motion a little.
Hey, we got a question from chat from Steve. How much of a mission is it to change one letter from the original font style to another, say like from a sans serif to a serif?
Ooh.
Would you have to redo it from scratch?
It depends how nifty you want to get with the pen tool in After Effects. You can go and add other like anchor points to your letter and redraw from there. I guess it depends how long you've spent animating it and whether it's easier to start from scratch or adjust your path. But yeah, you definitely can. Like if you wanted to, you know, you can go into the path kind of property here and then change that. You could change it animating from sans serif to serif if you wanted to. That could be kind of fun. And then this is a different project to what I think the question was asking about, but
no, I think that makes sense. That makes sense to me. It would depend how different it is, and as you said, how much time have you invested in animating it, and you just have to figure out, okay, is this, you know, what's either the fastest or most efficient way to solve this problem? So the client goes, I love it, but we've actually got this new font called Comic Sans that we're using for our future branding. So if you could just change the font and send it over by the end of the day, that would be great.
Devastating. Yeah, if you were going from like a sans serif to a script, that's a pretty big leap and probably easier to start from scratch. But if you're just, if you're just adjusting the weight or the height or something, then yeah, I would do that with the pen tool in After Effects. So now I'm just looking at our little O here, and we've got 3 little guys kind of. Let me turn the T ones off because they're getting in the road.
Crazy T.
Get out of here. We're not ready for you yet, T. These are kind of happening. Well, they're happening at the same time, but it sort of works. I think maybe I want to actually move this guy because he's sort of just not quite interacting enough with the letter form just yet. And I maybe want to just rotate it a little bit so it's following more closely with the direction of the O.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The other thing that's happening here, and this will sometimes, for reasons unbeknownst to me, happen with trim parts, is notice how this little guy up here and this guy are, they're moving in a clockwise direction, but this guy on the bottom is like, nah, we're swimming against the tide here.
All right.
That is a pretty simple thing to fix. I think it probably has something to do with the direction you drew it in, and I've just forgotten which, I just like drew it quite quickly as I was working in Illustrator.
I think there's like a start anchor point or something and a second anchor point in the way that it's read when you bring it in, and it's like, well, this is the first one, so it's probably that. Yeah,
I think you mean this, and most of the time it's right, but sometimes if you get it going the wrong way, you just have to twirl down into this little group thing here, the group property, and it's this guy here, so we're just reversing the path direction. So now we're all going clockwise.
We're all swimming in the same circle. And that makes sense with the animation as well, like, because the animation and movement is happening and jiggling, and then it's flying away from said jiggle.
From the aforementioned jiggle.
Aforementioned jiggle.
I just love trying to like anthropomorphize. How do I say it?
Don't ask me. Oh my gosh.
Anthropomorphize. I'm saying it wrong.
Anthropomorphize. Yeah.
I love trying to assign human qualities to inanimate objects.
It's like when you're trying to type something, you can't quite spell it correctly, and you just change the word to an easier word.
Yeah. Yes. I didn't need you anyway. It's fine. I'll go this way.
Like, wow. Yeah. Need to get back in my box. Trying a little bit too hard today to sound clever. It's bad when Google doesn't even know what you're trying to say. You like throw it into Google and it's like,
You're on your own.
Yeah.
All right. That's looking like something.
And
I've
so
just offset those.
Sorry, just letting you know, we've got about 6 minutes left, so it does go quickly while we're getting jiggly over here. So
getting jiggly with it.
I knew someone would type it in chat. Yeah, I think
Did they?
Anthropomorphize. I'm not going to do it. It's easier to
You can
type.
do it. You can do it. You've got this. You've got this.
That was my best bet. I'll practice between now and Thursday. Good segue. We'll be back on Thursday, by the way.
Great segue.
which is our last session on this. So yeah, on Thursday, back with Sophie. Same time, same channel. We'll be here. We'll learn to say that word. We'll see how far we get.
So good. All right, so we've only, what have we got? 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes left now.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Oh my goodness. All right. So let's jump into our letter T motion little doobies. Might need to reposition those actually, because they're kind of crashing in to the letter T a little bit. So actually, do you know what? Let's pause that, because I feel like it's going to be more fun to just quickly do the letter O, because
it was interesting with the T, because originally I think you had it pivoting in the middle, but then you were making decisions during the animation, which is quite an interesting thing for us just to chat about, is that the original static drawing you thought, yeah, this is probably what it's going to be like, but you might discover through process that, oh, actually I want to pivot a bit from the top or the bottom or change the animation. So you know what? I guess you discover things as you're in After Effects that you might not have necessarily planned when it was static.
I reckon we can still use what we've got there, but they might just need to be, I might just need to move them down to emphasize the area that's actually moving, because at the moment it doesn't make any sense having them in the middle. That's not the kind of primary movement.
Right.
So I reckon if we just bring these down and have one go and then the second one.
Then, oh yeah, so like each time the metronome gets to the end, it'll kind of go.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Should we just do it? I'm jumping ahead because I'm excited to see these little jump lines, but
no, follow your dreams. Do the O. I don't want to keep bringing you back to Mr. T over here.
Follow your dreams. That's so good.
Just my general advice.
It's great advice.
Works in like every situation.
So we're kind of moving in the wrong direction here, actually. So we want it to reverse. So that's that little guy that we were looking at before. Just to flip it around. No. Have I got that backwards? No, do you know what it is? It's just the timing's off. So we need these to fire off earlier. There we go.
Ah, I see.
There we go.
It's like showing the propulsion of it. So it's...
Yeah, it's like a little jet taking
leaving
off.
a little trail, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And again, because I just took a stab in the dark at how high the letter O was going to jump, they're kind of a little bit too long. And actually, maybe these guys should be in line, because that movement is all happening at once. It doesn't make sense in this instance. I know I, in general, like to Newton's cradle everything in a row, but I think it probably makes more sense for them all to kind of jump at the same time here.
Right. Just 1 minute left, I think, and then we'll have to say our goodbyes. It's gone very quick. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us.
So fast. But yeah, so that'll be the final kind of polish on this piece, I think, is just making sure that I've got those trim path little features happening at a time that makes sense for the motion of the letter, so that it's not clashing with it, that it's just emphasizing it and kind of, helping to tell that story a little bit more. But even just looking at these ones at the start, like you can see how it's already kind of just that extra bit of something, you know, it already was
adds
like,
a lot to it.
Yeah.
No, it's super cool. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to pick up where we left off from today. So as I said, we are back in 48 hours. So it'll be Thursday here. Might be Wednesday afternoon where you are, but it's the exact same time that we were live today, which is midday here in Australia. But, thank you so much, Sophie. This has been so much fun, as always, hanging out with you on stream. And thanks for answering some of the questions that we had. And we will see you in 2 days.
That you shall. I'll see you then.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.